Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. This is Dawn from Practical Spiritualism. Today I want us to dive into that topic of sovereignty. What does that really mean? So for a lot of people, they think sovereignty means control, or that's what they associate it with. But the actual meaning of the word is to be self-governing, to be in alignment with ourself. And that's where we govern our choices and our actions from, as opposed from outside forces, having to do what somebody else tells us to do or what we think we're supposed to do. And instead, we're really behaving and acting from our own heart, from our own center point, our own North Star. And for a lot of us, that can be really difficult to even find. Most of us have had our parents or grown up in environments where we're told to listen to other people. And it's fine in the beginning as we're finding our feet within this realm of earth. But what about afterwards? If we're only taught to do what we're told, then we get to this place where we're already looping in. It's all about the pre-programming of our lives. And we're not making those decisions from a really centered place where we need to be making it. So it doesn't mean we're trying to control every circumstance or every aspect of our lives, but it means that we're making choices from a true meaning of free will, as opposed to the illusion of free will, where we're actually being pushed and pulled by our past, by our parents, by outside sources in society, the traumas and dramas really of our life. So if we think that we control everything around us, we feel like we're going to finally be safe and free. But in truth, the control becomes part of the illusion and actually becomes part of our chaos, because it's not possible. It's not possible for us to control our life because we're constantly in a place where we're learning from other people or somebody else's actions and then we're responding. Or worse, if we're not actually sovereign, then we're reacting. And that really becomes the easiest place where we can notice it. Am I responding to the actions of another person, or am I reacting to what they've just done or said and how it makes me feel? Which is a very different place to be. One has us involved in the chaos and the drama, and the other one has us slightly, not really detached, but think like the actors on the stage versus watching from the audience. I can respond, I can still feel it, but it's not personal. Now I'm starting to come into a place that I can really realize that somebody else's words, somebody else's actions are about them. And the way I'm responding is really about me. And that becomes where we really start to experience the first steps coming into our sovereignty. And so in that, we talk about it as being understanding an inner authority. So what does that mean to have inner authority? Well, it means that your decisions, actions, and beliefs come from a place of self-alignment and not from fear or the need for external validation. So how many decisions have you made today that were not driven by fear, worthiness, anger, resentment, overwhelm, and stress? Probably not as many as we really hope that we are really making our choices from. Most of the time, we are coming from one of those lineages versus from coming from a lineage of love, of light, of information. And so when we're coming into inner authority, we're starting to make those choices from that place. And the other piece that comes from sovereignty is the role of self-responsibility. So self-responsibility and sovereignty go hand in hand. When we claim our sovereignty, we're also claiming responsibility for our life. This was a big point for me. I had to take a moment where I was going to claim full responsibility for my past. That does not mean that it's my fault. I've had a really dark past, and I will talk about it on another podcast at some other point. But for today, what that means is I had to take a moment where I said, okay, I made choices that brought me into those situations where those experiences happened. I either stayed or I didn't get out. There's parts of roles that I played in it. Again, it doesn't make them my fault. It's not my fault I was abused. It's not my fault that some of these terrible things happened. But it does mean by me taking responsibility, I take my power back. So now those dark shadowed areas all of a sudden get light shown into them. So you can think of responsibility versus blame or shame as a way that we start to shine the light onto a place that's hard for us to look at. And when we shine the light on that place, light is information. It's pure information, which means darkness or shadow is just the lack of information. So if we can shine the light onto something, bring our awareness to it, take responsibility for it, now we're full of information. And when we can take responsibility and we can release the charges from it, now we start to get closer to freedom. Now we have the experience without the charge, without the emotional attachment, and we're now moving towards wisdom versus the experience with the emotional attachment, that trigger, which then becomes a reaction or a trigger point. And that's the stuff that we try to cover up. The illusion starts to become that when we cover up our triggers and our wounds, that we think that we're free of them, when really they're controlling every aspect of our life. Everything is about not touching this wound. As long as you don't touch my wound, we're friends. And I'm not sovereign because I'm actually being controlled by my past. I'm being controlled by these wounds that I haven't released and I haven't healed. So when we're taking a look at this, we want to be in a place of acknowledging our role and then letting that go. I can look back at my past and not blame the young girl that I was, but understand her deep desire to be loved, her deep desire to be chosen, and getting into situations that just weren't in alignment with that. But that was the desire. So how can I blame a young girl that that was all she really wanted, was somebody to love her? It's impossible. I could do it, but it's not going to feel good and it's not going to be in alignment with myself. So instead, I can be more curious, I can be compassionate, I can be more caring, and I'm starting to show aspects of myself, my true self essence. So one of the ways that we do this is we need to release the external influences. So the most powerful aspects of sovereignty is the ability to let go. We start letting go of those influences. I love that for you, but it doesn't mean it needs to be for me. If you spend any amount of time with me, that's something I say quite a bit. I love that for you. Totally okay for you to make those choices, but they're not mine, and I don't need to take them on or adopt them. So from this place, I can make more sovereign decisions. I'm self-governing. I'm not being chosen by holding on to your expectations of me. And so from there, we can understand that all of that, everybody else's opinions, everybody else's rules, their commands, their demands, even their requests, are all just noise. They're all just noise, because everything else comes into the calm and into the quiet. And you see that when you see aspects of those ancient sovereign queens. They would be standing there in a sense of regalness, where they're just self-governing. They can listen, they can hear, they're open to it, they're compassionate, but it's not pushing and pulling them, causing chaos. Instead, they're able to start walking that middle path. They can come into a place of self-harmony, where we're not having the push-pull happen again. The next piece of being sovereign is about living courageously. And courage is another aspect of the self. So when we think of the self, think of courage. When am I leaning into the discomfort of being myself? It's one of my favorite things from Brene Brown, one of her first books that I ever read. That was for my 40th birthday. And leaning into the discomfort of being yourself became a physical action that I would take every day. Somebody would say something, or I'd need to say I was wrong, and I would really have to lean into the discomfort. Somebody was coming at me. I worked retail and worked with the public, and I would lean into the discomfort as opposed to coming back and making more space. Not in a threatening way, but in that way of just leaning in. I'm going to stand here and be present, even though I'm uncomfortable, and having the courage to do that versus walking away or being passive aggressive. So courage comes really from knowing that we're worthy. The biggest piece I think we really need to understand is that no matter what you call creation or your source, whether it's God or any other name from any other lineage or language, the source essence, your true, the highest vibration of love and light, you're an aspect of that. At its purest, we have unity. There's just oneness. As it begins to expand, it begins to particulate. And in that particulation, we start to get aspects, individuality. So the particles that make up the whole. As that comes through, we have the archetypes and the monads, aspects of personality and aspects of emotion. As it continues to separate, to particulate, to become more dense, we start to get the mental body, thoughts, beliefs, ideas. And then it continues, and now you can feel it. You can feel that energy. You can feel the thought. Then it continues to become more dense, to continue to become closer to form. And we get into the emotional body. And in emotional body, or the vital body, we have the emotions, which are magnetic energy drawing experiences to us, as well as light, the information, the light body. And then finally, we have energy collapsing into what we call physical form, still frequency, but it collapses into physical form and we get an experience. And so every one of us, our first moment of conception, there's a spark. And that spark is an aspect of pure light, of pure love. And so if you're alive, there's a piece of divinity within you. You are an aspect of creation, expanding, creating to experience yourself. And that is the whole point of this. You are worthy because you are an aspect of God, of light, of love, of universe, one song. We're all singing the same thing. It's just that often we get on different verses, or someone's on the chorus, or we're singing from a different language. You're in part A and I'm in part C. So when we think of it that way, now there doesn't need to be for me to be right, you have to be wrong. Now we start to listen and we start to find the common thread. And we can do this when we know that we're worthy of our own understanding, our own experience of spirit. Now we can come into a place of courage. And within that courage, we can share that information in a more loving and kind, compassionate way with those around us. So the biggest thing that I really want you guys to remember is that it's your birthright. Sovereignty is our birthright. I made all my little notes to make sure I didn't miss anything. So it's not something that we have to earn or prove. It's something that you simply need to reclaim, heal, release, reclaim. It is your birthright. Remember, you are worthy of this journey. You are pure perfection. Every one of us, as we learn to let go and heal, just gets a little brighter. We put a little more light onto those shadows. And like clouds burn away and the sun keeps shining, the same goes for us. We're not flawed and we're not broken. We're just maybe a little smudged. Until next time, stay bold, stay loving, and keep embracing your journey. If you liked this video, please follow me, like it, and even follow me on my other socials, as well as checking out my website, practicalspiritualismco.com, and my blog there. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I look forward to seeing you again. Brightest of blessings.